right. Well, welcome. This is a great opportunity to meet someone from Nashville that can talk about the job market in Nashville and also some trends that are going on that will be real interesting for many of us. Britt, the partner and director of the Accounting and Finance Consulting Service at LBMC, and he's going to give us a little bit about the trends in Nashville job market and also the trends, I guess, internationally too, probably, right, Britt?
Sure. I don't know about international, but we can certainly talk about the country and that the national trends and definitely talk about Nashville, Middle Tennessee. I've been at LBMC now for coming on 20 years, coming right around the corner in January. I've hit my 20-year mark there. Started out as a financial recruiter, working primarily on the contract side, doing staffing for firms throughout Middle Tennessee. I can speak to your point. I can speak to a broader perspective because the market for what I do has broadened over the years. That's probably been one of the first trends I'll share with you is that when I got into this business, I came from public accounting or from an accounting background, had been in accounting for almost 10 years, had started my career at KPMG in Dallas. And so to book in that time that I started my career in Dallas at KPMG to what I'm seeing now, the market has changed a lot. And so we definitely can touch on that today. Look forward to talking through some of the trends that we're seeing play out, probably primarily in the accounting market, but a lot of what I see applies to the job market in general and the overall job market across the United States.
Very good. So when I was thinking international, I was thinking more about maybe how international people fit into the Nashville market,
Sure.
so that kind of
Yeah.
thing too.
No, that makes sense. And it's I don't know if you know this, but from an interesting standpoint, one of the things we're looking a lot at if you're a recruiter is job growth. Job growth has been fantastic in the United States, really since the pandemic. I can tell you that this past March, we had 300,000 new jobs created across the country. Something that is interesting, though, tying back specifically to your comment about international job, tie-ins. Right now, a lot of our job growth is accredited to immigration. The fact that immigration has spiked up, we, of course, not to go political, but you're hearing all kinds of negative stories about immigration right now. But one of the positive stories of immigration, it has really fueled our job growth and our consistent job growth over the past 3 years. And that's actually been a big plus to our job economy and to the overall economy as a whole.
Yeah, that's something you wouldn't think about much. So is this international job market, is this in certain levels of the job market? Is this, do you find a lot of professionals coming in from different places looking for accounting type jobs or engineering type jobs, or how would you
Yeah, no,
categorize it?
that's a great question. In fact, the reality is right now, the immigrants that are coming in are taking jobs that Americans don't want, and so primarily that you think about hospitality jobs, you think about just different types of manual labor type of jobs, construction jobs, yard work. I mean, there's a lot of that sounds stereotypical, and it falls into a lot of the untrained or just dirty jobs that are out there that are honestly critical to our economy and critical to keeping things going. The hospitality business right now would probably shut down if they did not have the infusion of labor. Part of what's happening with that is our population. You probably have seen the trends. Our population is aging. I think our baby boomers are really fading from the marketplace, from the job market, and so you had to have a supply of labor from somewhere, and that's part of what's going on. But to answer your question, it's really going to be those lower level jobs and the jobs that Americans typically don't want.
Good. So you mentioned you had a lot of trends in the job market, especially in Nashville. Just give us a feel for Nashville. I know that's
Yeah,
kind of blown up from when I first got here.
Yeah, so I can tell you that just recently looked at the data. Population growth in Nashville was has grown. My wife and I moved here in 2004, and since 2004 to basically 2024, we've had over 50% growth in our population. So, that's if you just look at the numbers, and I mean, you drive downtown Nashville, you can see it. It was a couple years ago that we started talking about cranes. We started talking about 100 people, 100 new people per day, moving to Nashville, and we're still on that kind of pace. So it's slowed down a little bit, but we've had probably last time I looked at it, probably at least 5 years of ranging between 80 to 100 people per day, new people coming to town, and that's a net number. So that's accounting for people leaving. That's just the net add to our population each year, and so tremendous growth. And then the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that people growth kind of goes hand in hand with job growth. And so from a recruiting standpoint, as you kind of study it, it makes sense to place people in jobs. You got to have people, right? You got to have jobs, but you also have to have people. And so Nashville's been very blessed in the fact that companies have decided to come here, and we're also blessed in the fact that we have a really pretty cool town to live in. All the arts community, just the night. I come from Dallas, so the nice weather here, the beautiful landscape. We actually get four seasons, and so there's a lot of people that want to come, that are attracted to come here. And at the same time, there's a lot of businesses that have been coming here, and so it becomes a cycle of, a positive cycle there that we're benefiting from.
That is, you're exactly right. Related to the explosion, the skyline has just changed over the last 10 years to a point where you wouldn't even recognize it. Remember
Yeah,
the Batman building being the icon that you would see, and now you cannot even see it from some certain locations. I
yeah.
mean,
Let me share with you a picture here if I
okay,
can. I think
let me
um,
allow you to share.
how awesome is that? That's the
Yeah, that's amazing. But that's exactly what I was talking about. So
yeah.
I'll show you, since you showed a picture, I'll show you one of mine. I'm an artist, and I do skylights.
So
Right.
one of the things as you're looking that up, and I was trying to remember the number, but job growth in 23 for Nashville, just an additional stat to throw at you, 3.7% job growth. That put us in the top five of the top 50 metro
Oh,
areas in the country.
yep.
Yeah. Let's see your picture.
One that is done with palette knives. But see how long ago that was. How long do you think that was?
Wow.
I mean, there's
I don't
no,
know.
but you see
The
all the,
last maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
oh, it was more like 20.
Really?
Yeah,
It's just a
because
different view. It's a different angle than what I was showing you. But
yeah,
yeah, okay.
you'd
It's
see
right around the river. Yeah.
all the background. I just thought that was interesting since you showed the skyline. That was how long ago. From that angle, it looks like there's a lot there, but none of those buildings that would be in the background, they're larger. The buildings beside the Batman building, everything are not in that picture.
The interesting thing is that you just take it for granted how much growth we've had
Yep.
and what that means for us from an economic standpoint. Is pretty awesome. Here we go. I'm going to get back into sharing here, but there's definitely a opportunity to do what I do. In particular, I've been extremely blessed that we have the kind of opportunities that we've had. So this kind of gives you an idea, but that's the numbers I was telling you before. So labor market growth, 300,000 plus jobs, just kind of an interesting stat there. There's unemployment at a national level. Um, and finding people is top concern. A lot of people working here. This is talking about our aging population, I mentioned this to you before we started the podcast rolling, that one of the interesting trends right now, when I started recruiting 20 years ago, if and I'm 52, so I can say this, but when you started to enter your mid 50s, people were genuinely concerned that they'd be locked out or shut out of the job market. And that is not the case right now. So, like this particular stat or graph or chart shows you the dip that happened in the older workforce right around the pandemic. A lot of people headed to the house because they were just afraid to go into the office. But since then, we've seen a notable climb in our older population of workers. This is
Yeah.
workforce 55 to 64. You see that climb there. It's pretty dramatic. And I was explaining to you that part of what's going on here is our prime aged labor force is maxed out. We're not, our birth rates are down. That's a factor too. And, we talked about the immigration, but we also are seeing our folks that want to work, there's an opportunity for you to work longer into life. And so, in the particular field of accounting, it's not uncommon for me to entertain candidates that are in their 70s.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really good because I don't know if I'll ever retire.
Yeah, and you don't, I mean, and that's kind of, you don't have to. You really don't have to. I'm going to go back and show you some Nashville data here. I think it's kind of interesting here. But so that's the population growth that I was telling you about before. I mean, you look at that chart, and any investment that you'd want to invest in, you would love if the chart looked like that, right?
Yep. Yep.
And that's Nashville right there. It's been a great investment. So, and that's more data on this. 86 people per day in 23. Here's that stat I was telling you earlier: 81 to 100 people a day from 2017 to 2022. So, holy cow! No wonder we have traffic issues.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was stuck in that traffic yesterday as I was going to Knoxville.
Yeah, yeah, and probably the last stat I'll show you here: unemployment percentage, 2.2%, the lowest unemployment percentage of any large metro area for forever, for the last 2 months for sure. I looked at the last month of unemployment numbers across the country. Small town, large town, any town that's recorded unemployment percentage, we had to be in the top five, period, of every
Wow.
town in the country. And we're talking about some small, tiny towns that not even comparable, but based on the size, basically in Nashville, if you want a job, you've got a job. That's kind of what this is saying. So pretty incredible stuff when you look at how dynamic our market has been. So,
Very
but
good. That is
yeah.
pretty interesting, pretty exciting. I noticed that with the trends that you showed, the older people, and I think you said this, that because there's not a large number of people, younger people, in that job
Hmm.
market compared to the, I guess, the more mature workers, that's probably a big reason, right?
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's that companies have no choice. You can't, ageism is no longer going to be a thing. I mean, you can't discriminate based on age now. You don't have that luxury. I know that sounds crude and everything, but that's the reality. Is there's no choice. A company, and it's a good, I mean, it's kind of a good thing in that if you're capable of doing the work, but maybe you don't look pretty, or maybe you're quote unquote too old. It doesn't matter right now. It's about your ability to do the work. If you can be productive, you're probably going to be put to work and have an opportunity to do work. And to me, that gives people options. That's a nice thing that is a good thing about a tight job market. And about, some of this is a growth oriented thing, but some of it is population dynamics. But what was eye opening to me is what I told you earlier about the immigration factor. We politicize immigration a lot, and I think rightfully so. I don't like the idea of unsecured borders. I really don't, and I'm not advocating that. But I am advocating that we need to be very aggressive about allowing people that want to work and that are good citizens, we need to let them come. We need them. We need them to continue to grow our
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
And that's what this data is saying.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we need people. We just need to know who they are. We need to
Hmm.
know that we need to have a system that's not easy to come in illegally. And we need to have the right people and people who, like you said, want to work and we can trust them with our children, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
and I used to say it was skilled labor. The reality is, yes, we want skilled people to come, people that bring a lot of talent and capabilities. But man, if they want to work hard and they're going to obey our laws and pay tax, we need them, and that's kind of the bottom line. It really is. Something
but
else. If we can,
on that subject, before we get off that subject, we've seen this trend before in the 70s, right? Where we had um, a we stop immigrants from
yes,
coming in for a season, and then you remember the movies of the 70s because they would immigrate to large cities, but as those cities got late, families would come in, and so the families would kind of police that area. But as soon as the families no longer came in, those areas became high crime areas, and so
correct.
just that lack of flow of families is what caused the crime to spike in those, urban areas that would normally go into. Right now, we don't have a lot of families. We have a lot of single, you know, the term is military age men coming in. So that's kind of scary in itself. But
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Like I said, I'm not advocating open borders at all, but I am advocating that we get a cohesive, aggressive immigration policy that we can control who's coming in, but be very intentional about letting good people in, as the bottom line, because we need
well,
them.
and also you don't, a lot of times we think about the luxury goods, like if somebody wants to buy a yacht, well, who's making those yachts, right?
Hmm.
It's not the people buying those yachts aren't making those yachts. The people buying those yachts can afford it, but they need a whole infrastructure. It's just like the story of a pencil, right? Who knows how to make a pencil? There's not one person that knows how to make a pencil because somebody's cutting down the tree, somebody's processing the tree, somebody's doing, and all those jobs are required just get a pencil. And the same
Yeah,
thing goes with everything else. As an engineer, I think in terms of cradle to grave to cradle. And so how you going to create that whole supply chain all the way up to where you're going to recycle it, go back to cradle, right? And
yeah.
so all
Well,
those
and
thoughts are,
and you think about it, this, to kind of add on to that analogy you just gave on the pencil. Why did there was a point in time in our history where one person could make a pencil, but that's all they did in their time, and they weren't very efficient at it. And so the whole reason you have that supply chain is because people got efficient and specialized. And if you get good at specialization, what happens? You actually increase your economic productivity. You increase the economic productivity in an area, you actually, it ends up increasing everybody's quality of life and standard of living. And so, that it's actually all of that goes hand in hand to having a vibrant economy. And so, taking it back to the point I made earlier about our job growth, our job growth right now would not be happening and if we did not have a steady immigration coming into the country. And if we did not have that steady immigration, that job growth happening, we'd actually have been in a recession the last couple of years because of the increased prices, the inflation, interest rates, and things like that. It actually would have put us into a recession. And so a lot of the economists are saying right now, the way that we have not gone into recession because of this increase in immigration. So it's kind of a fascinating thing how quality labor supply really does bolster the economy overall. So anyway, a little bit of
what,
a tangent there, but yeah.
yeah, one of the big, I mean, or I'm going off on another tangent too. So that also affects the cost of living too, right? The cost of the homes have skyrocketed so we bought in Franklin, which is a high area, right?
Yeah.
And so we bought a house that was at the bottom of the market, and there's a short sale, and there's no way we could afford that house today, right? Because it's at top market, and it's it's tripled, quadrupled in value from what we got it. We bought a house that's really big and it needed a lot of work, but there's no way we could get it now. How do the
Yeah.
people who are coming in at the lowest ends, how are they afford or where are they choosing to live? They work in Franklin, but where do they live? Now, those are the
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I'm actually going. I wanted to show you something that kind of ties back to this.
Mhm.
And I'm coming fresh off of presenting some of this data, as you probably can tell. But
It looks great.
uh, yeah, one of the interesting things that I was able to determine in my research is, just in general, what you're talking about and touching on is our cost of living, and so a lot of times people in the media in particular, they cover inflation as a snapshot in time. And so, what's inflation done the last month? What's inflation done the last quarter? Occasionally, you'll hear them talk about the last 6 months or the last year. But what you rarely hear them talk about is what's inflation. And so, what's different about this time, I would argue, one of the most significant differences that we're having right now is because of this high rate of inflation that's happened multiple periods, that's been stacked year after year. We're looking at a different ball game than we've looked at in a long time. And so you mentioned the 70s is probably the last time that we had hyperinflation. I was born in the 70s, but I wasn't aware of the seven. I wasn't at an age to be aware of the cost of things in the 70s. But this chart right here shows you the cumulative inflation rate for the past basically 5 years. And this is a piece of data, CPI. So this is from the government. So the government's saying that inflation is 22%, over 22% in the last 5 years. So that means inflation's averaged over 4% a year for the past 5 years. And the interesting thing is the Fed's target is 2%. And so we've more than doubled inflation each year for the past 5 years. That's a game changer. And so to your point, immigrants they're all living together, so that's how they do it. I mean, they are a community, and they all kind of get it together and do teamwork to manage the cost. But an individual family, it's really rough. What's interesting though is that wages, and this hasn't been talked about a whole lot, but from the best I can tell from doing a deep dive in the government data, wages have actually matched the CPI in cost of living. The wages have gone up 23.72%. And so it's just that really surprised me that on average wages have gone up that much.
Yeah.
But it's interesting though, when you actually poll people and talk to them individually, I'm not getting the same data that I got from the surveys from the
Yeah.
government. Like most people will tell you that their wages are not keeping up with the increase in cost of living.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
And
just some,
I think one of the reasons is just thinking statistically, if you look
yeah.
at the average, you're going to get the highest paid people and you're going to get the lowest. So the average is going up, but if you look at the median, most
Hmm.
people aren't high. On the high end, most people might be on the low end. So that's very skewed data. And the
Yeah.
people who are
Yeah.
unemployed, feel it more, and the people who are doing those lowest end jobs are going to feel it more. And plus, the percentage of their income is going to be taken out more. So that's in my mind, just thinking about it, that's
That
probably
could be
what
the
we're
issue.
seeing.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's a great point. And I think you're probably onto something. I was just thinking about where I pulled that data. And of course,
Yep.
it's the data that I can get from the government. I mean, I'm kind of limited, but I'm going to go back and actually make that a homework assignment to see if that's the average or if that's the median. But you're 100% right on the core inflation. The other thing I will tell you too is I don't know about you, but I like butter. Do you like butter, Craig?
I love butter.
Yeah, so the price of butter in the year September 2021 to September 2022, the price of butter increased over 26% in that one period alone, that one 12-month period. I was at a Williamson County Chamber of Commerce event a couple weeks ago, and they had a panel of restaurant owners and food and a bakery owner talk about their businesses and the challenges in their business. And you know what the number one topic was? The price of butter. So, and I thought, well, what's the deal about the price of butter? And I went and looked it up. A 26% increase in 1 year alone.
Yeah.
Now, you stack that on top of the other increases. I think butter, I need to go look at the cumulative
Well,
increase, but I bet it's over 30% in the last
so
5 years.
so look at what's happened in the agricultural industry because they're trying to I mean, people are trying to push people away from beef, and they're
Hmm.
actually trying to limit the beef market and the dairy market. So they're trying to go to artificial meat and artificial other things. And in the process, there's there's less producing of the butter. So there's more of a, more of a, instead of a
A lower supply, and so the demand goes
abundance, a
up.
lower
Yeah,
supply. Yeah.
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 On that though, and I kind of got long-winded there, but that 22% number tell you that inflation, cumulative inflation, is much higher than 22%.
Well, very good. I mean, those are really good. It's always good to look at the numbers. And I used to teach statistics at different universities, so I'm always interested in seeing what's behind it and a little bit of data science, because
Oh
that's
yeah.
um but it's really, really good. But there's so many trends and so many pressures on the food and other things that we're gonna see it change yet again.
No,
I
you're right. Yeah. I mean, the Fed, and something that's happening in the job market that we are seeing, by the way, interest rates are starting to slow things down. And so we're seeing it on the margins,
Yeah.
even in a town like Nashville that we're doing so well. We are, when I talk to other recruiters in town, when I talk to business owners collectively, nobody's like slowing down to the point of shutting their business down or just not hiring at all. But maybe instead of making three hires this year, they're making two. People on the margin are slowing down.
Yeah, that's a good way. And then you can see other cities across the US doing, I mean, Nashville's in good position compared to Chicago and New York and others. And that's why we're getting so many people in. And that's why
Yeah.
some of the prices are going up. People from California or New York are coming in and not knowing what the real estate market is, paying more than they should for the property, which brings everything up too. I mean, I was doing a lot of rehabs and other things before the supply chain, and I had to shut down just because the
Yeah.
supply chain
I can
issues.
believe it. Yeah. It stopped making sense. You couldn't
Yeah.
make money doing it.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. So you have other trends that you want to talk about, or and what about? So one of the things that we talked about was you talked about age. What about technology? What about AI?
Yeah.
Those kind
Yeah,
of
we were about to go to that a second. I'm glad you got me
things.
back on it. But so I told you off screen, I told you that I had a survey or some information to share with you on AI particularly. So this is actually a Duke University commissioned study with the Fed, with the Richmond and Atlanta Fed. So this is our area. They surveyed CFOs. They do this every quarter, and you can look at the data here. It's basically saying, nearly 60% of CFOs are saying that automation of tasks, which again, this is kind of the AI question, is not really changing their hiring. But so that's, close to 60%. But then you go down here and look at the rest of the survey data, and as you mentioned, your one of your strengths is stats. So you can look at the companies that are saying the percentage of CFOs that are saying that they're slowing their hiring. Some have not filled openings because of technology enhancements. And again, we believe a lot of that is AI here. But when you dig into the detail and you read some of the surveys, they do attribute, at least on the margin, again, companies are in some cases slowing down on their hiring because of AI. There's certainly, what I'd say the bigger trend is they're enhancing their productivity. And then the other thing that I've noticed, and I'm seeing it at LBMC as a firm, companies are using AI to be more productive and to actually do their job better.
Yep.
So productivity, I think what's going to happen is productivity is going to increase, and over the long course, we're going to see new jobs created because of AI. We've already, in fact, have seen that at LBMC. We have a department, an AI automation department that exists that started a year and a half ago because of AI.
Yep.
And so, that's what I think will happen in the long run is it'll spawn into new opportunity, which is
Yep.
what typically good technology ends up creating. We all thought that we'd no longer need administrative back office workers with a computer, that we could reduce all this back office workforce. Didn't happen, right? So
So I kind of experienced that firsthand because I was entering the job market in the 80s, right? And so at that time, there were mainframes and mini computers and dumb terminals, right? And so when they went to desktop personal computers, there's IBM and Apple. Those are the two games in town, right? When we went to that, I heard the same arguments then as I hear now about AI. And that is that engineers would go in and say, well, I'm an engineer. I've got a secretary to do that. Well, then they became their own writers of everything. And then everybody now compute, you wouldn't imagine not having a laptop, right? Then
no,
laptops didn't exist, right? And people didn't know how to use the computers. It was DOS, it wasn't Windows. But the same arguments, the same thing I hear about AI, even in classes like um, the classes I teach, the in the universities, they're talk, the discussion is, well, how do we keep people from cheating with AI? That's the wrong question. It's how do you teach people to use AI and change your grading mechanisms so that you include that, right? That's the right answer, because if you don't have AI in the future, you're not going to be competitive. Uh,
correct.
and I can do, for example, I can brainstorm with an AI tool and save me 4 hours worth of work, right? Easily. And I can
Correct.
do things um, personas in marketing and personas and different things, and I can do that in a second, where it would take me 4 hours to put that together without the
Yeah,
AI tool. You're
yeah,
exactly right.
yeah. This presentation, the presentation you're just looking at, several of the slides were created within seconds using AI,
Exactly.
so I was it just and a lot of that was stuff that would have been I'm not particularly strong with Excel these days and making a graph or a chart. And I didn't have to fiddle around with it, and I didn't have to pull off my day job, which is recruiting and leading a
Right.
recruiting team. I was able to just punch up a request on AI and describe. I had to spend some time thinking about a prompt. The interesting thing is I've kind of geeked out, here lately on AI. And so I've gone out to YouTube and learned a lot about it and learned how to do prompts. Well, there's a whole workforce now called prompt engineering. There's a whole
Yep.
category that's been created, and all these YouTubers. I mean, there was dozens of high quality YouTube productions on how to use AI. Well, those people, they see that there's an opportunity there, and so definitely, it's just going to be another tool that people figure out how to use to make themselves more productive in the long run. So
You either master change or you become irrelevant. That's what I say.
correct,
Yep.
correct. I like it.
Cool. So is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Maybe
Ah,
what your company
yeah,
does, or how?
yeah. So LBMC, yeah. Let's kind of that'd be a good kind of bookend here. But LBMC staffing is part of LBMC PC, which is a number. It's number 35 in the country as far as audit and tax firms and CPA firms in the country. Staffing came along in 1999, and we are what I would call a boutique finance and accounting and HR firm. That's how we really had started out, and all the recruiters are much like myself. We have backgrounds in accounting, finance, in the areas that we recruit for. And so we've focused on finance and accounting primarily. My team does contract placement, interim placement, as well as fractional placement. And so you hear it called different things. It's really kind of the same thing. It's resources that can come in on a temporary basis, typically really fast, and help a company get a job, a project taken care of. Been doing that, as I said earlier, for about 20 years. Our firm has been in business for about 26 years now, closing in on it. And again, we're primarily in Middle Tennessee and East Tennessee. During the pandemic, the world went more remote. And so my particular business, I do a lot of work in the private equity space, placing interim controllers and interim CFOs. But we also do a lot of work still in Middle Tennessee, providing senior accountants. It could be an interim payroll accountant. It could be, a number of these roles that are in accounting and finance area. And so we also have a practice that focuses on direct hire. And so they're placing people again, primarily in finance. They're working with companies in Middle Tennessee and also in East Tennessee, finding high quality folks. We have one of the things that sets LBMC staffing apart is we have incredible tenure. You already heard me talk about my 20-year tenure coming up in January.
Yeah.
I work with 4 other recruiters that have been at that firm longer than me, Craig. And so, yeah, it's our tenure is unparalleled. And so then the question is, besides us being, being tried and true, what does that do for our clients? We bring a lot of market knowledge to bear. We bring a lot of intel on candidates. So typically when we send a candidate to a job, we have met that candidate. We have worked with them before. We know that candidate because we know the majority of the candidate pool in Nashville because of our tenure in the marketplace. If we don't know them, because of our experience, we know how to qualify them. We interview our candidates and we know how to read them. And our success rate is really high on our placements. It's not, we like to say it's not just connecting people, but it's making a match. And that's really a big difference in what we do, is we're truly making a match.
So what's
and so
really
that's,
cool, I'm looking at your website now and sharing that. But I was following along with what you're saying. And if people want to see for themselves, go out to the lbmc.com and then you'll be able to see what I'm looking at right now, what we're looking at. But yeah, there's a lot there. This is a good size group of activities that you can do, core competencies that are really amazing. You're talking about fractional, and that was kind of a new term for me when I first heard you say that, but I think I understand it. But the way I used to help people understand it, if you want to be best at trucking, you don't need to be best at accounting, right? You need to focus on trucking, getting part from point A to point B, and maybe you can hire accountants come in and do all the books
correct
for you. But yeah, that's real important. It gives you more bang for the buck too.
Yeah, the fractional term is a term that I trained myself to start using probably about 2 years ago. And that's part of what I was talking about, that evolution of the market force where a lot more part-time resources are being leveraged. And so fractional is essentially a way for a client to pay for just a part of an accountant's time instead of having to pay for 40 hours a week, or even, let's say, weekly time. Some of our clients engage us and will literally use a resource 10 hours a month, and that's all they pay for. And so that's the genesis of fractional.
Yeah, so I've been consulting for about 40 years, and I see here that you have a bunch of things, but benefits brokering, that's interesting. I added that to my services too, through Colonial. and others. But I find that just knowing this in your HR department, having this capability is a big help for the HR. They're overworked most of the time anyway. So you guys
Correct.
being able to provide those services is a big deal. And then technology, some of this is pretty interesting too, your abilities.
Yeah,
Um,
I like to think of us a three-legged stool. Everything accounting and finance that you can think of, really strong in the technology area and really strong also in the HR area. So we have a tremendous offering of services in those three areas. Not a law firm. You know, some people ask me, what does LBMC stand for? We're a prominent building there on the corner of Church Street and Franklin Road
yep.
and Brentwood. And so, converse to what you might think, LBMC does not stand for Little Biscuit Manufacturing Company. It's it's Lattimore Black, Morgan and Kane, and
Very
so
good.
the founders of the firm.
Very good. Well, I think you've covered a lot. So what would you like to leave us with? How do they get a hold of you, and what do they do if they need to have the services of LBMC?
Easy to find me on LinkedIn, and
Okay.
my personal information is on my LinkedIn page, but it also easy to find us at lbmc.com. And just get over to the staffing tab. So LBMC Staffing Solutions. Either way would be probably super easy to get a hold of me.
Very good. So that's good. Any last thoughts as far as what we should leave understanding about the job market in Nashville, or anything, any last words you'd like to tell us?
I always tell folks that when they're looking to hire, that it's an investment. And so, you think you want to take your time and get it right, obviously. But, certainly we've been partnering with companies and with candidates for a long period of time. And, being trustworthy, doing the right thing is critical for us. And, it's not, for me, it's not a sell, it's not a transaction, but you're dealing with a relationship, you're dealing with a person. And so that's really the way we work. That's really our process. And so, again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak today and just to be able to tell you a little bit about LBMC and talk about the job market. Craig, this has been a great time.
Well, I can't think of anyone better who could talk about it. So I appreciate you being with us. And with that,
Absolutely.
we'll say goodbye.